Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Snakes and Ladders. Like every week, I am here with my two co-hosts. You have Charlie Lambert.
Hello.
Don't do that was a bit of a Heil Hitler sign, but never mind.
Okay, let's do that again.
Keep it in. Keep it in. And we've got Mr. Jimmy
Reveal.
Lee.
Actually, a horrible human. We found him out.
Morning, chaps. How are we?
Yeah, very good, very good.
Well, I've just spotted something. I've got a little bit of sort of FOMO this morning as we've all gone AirPods Maxes, and I don't have any AirPods Maxes, so I can't look like robots like you two.
I was actually just complaining to Jimmy before the pod started about how disappointed I am in these headphones. But anyway,
now look, I'm probably you're going to tell me you disagree. I haven't got over the look of the things. I still think they look fucking mental. Normally with Apple products, you see it and you might be a bit like, and then of course you realise their designers were right. But it's not happened with those. I still think they're kind of like bold. Anyway.
Yeah, I admit when I first saw the design, I thought they were a bit odd, but I have sort of just integrated the aesthetic into my life now. But
well, yeah, to be fair, anybody who doesn't know this, how many pairs of headphones, College, do you have roughly? Because it's uncountable.
It's 14. I thought you were going to go with 4, and I was going to say that's extravagant.
14. And hang on.
And they've all got use cases. Let's just be clear.
Let's get into this. So I've got these. These are for my desk. You've got my AirPods Pros, which are my favourite. Then you've got my running headphones. So that's 3. Then you've got my sleeping headphones because I listen to audiobooks every night to go to sleep. Then I've got backups of each one of those. So that takes it up to 8. Then I've got corded ones of each one of those in case I want to do chords, basically. And then I've got a backup of my.
So hang on, you've got corded big headphones like this?
Yeah. They're backups on backups.
Why would you want to add the cord back in?
Battery might have run out, Jimmy.
Okay.
Yeah, so I've got 4 main running. I've got 4 main use cases. So desktop headphones, out and about headphones, running headphones, and sleeping headphones, and then basically I've got 2 backups of each one of those. And
I just think you've got too much money, to be honest, Ben. I mean, that's just ridiculous.
Coming from you, Jimmy. Anyway, let's move swiftly on from my headphones. Now, I think everyone's a bit bored about the budget and Rachel Reeves and the memes and everything. So we wanted to do something a little bit different this week. You won't be hearing about the budget from us. You'll be hearing something a bit more unique, a bit more interesting. So let me pass over to you guys.
Yeah, I just read an article that's inspired this. Is probably a bit of a soapbox moment, so you have to be patient with me here. But hang on, let me make sure I get the guy's name right. This is where Jimmy's so good because he'd go, "This is by
Jimmy, you are really good at that." I was reading.
This is from John Byrne. Oh, go on. Sorry, go on.
So I was going to just do an impression of Jimmy, but don't worry.
I remember the article, but I've got no idea who writes any of these things. But John Byrne Murdoch, well done, you sir, in the FT. And his title was "The Housing Crisis is Pushing Gen Z into Crypto and Economic Nihilism."
Hells yes.
And I just thought, do you know what? And look, if you're consuming this podcast, there's a fair chance you've seen people like Prof G. There are plenty like him on a bit of a pedestal about what we're doing generationally. It's the first time that a younger generation coming through have been worse off than their parents. There is a bigger picture conversation here, right? The economic promise of working hard and moving forwards. And you kind of went, I don't know, it just really struck a chord for me because I think personal journey would suggest this is not about being above it. This is about being in that, having taken punts in the hope that you become more risk on as a direct result of thinking, well, how the hell are you going to get to X? So then, of course, I looked up a bit and of the stats on this. Now, I've done various bits over the years. I worked out, we used to, when I was young, obviously like last year, we used to have a house in Henley. I lived in Henley for a few years with my mum, and that was rented, this place. And so I asked her, it was like, can you remember what the rent was? Worked it out, adjusted it for inflation. It was more than 4 times higher than the inflation adjusted amount from when we used to live there, if you want, because it had come on the market again at the time. That's what inspired me to look at it. It's like, Jesus Christ. So a house that was always nice. I mean, we were very lucky, lived on the river in Henley. That was very smart. But now was completely out of reach on a similar kind of income level, like no chance. And so I looked it up, the mortgage, the affordability ratios, and then these are so difficult because they're so broad, but generally we're talking 7 times salary. Well, mortgage lenders will give you 4, maybe to 6 as the absolute top end. So you're now saying, well, if you don't have a dual income family, you can't buy a house at all. And we happen to be in RBKC today. Have a guess. I just want to see whether you can get here. What do you think the affordability ratio is on average in RBKC? So how many times earnings is the value of a home on average?
9.
Not a bad guess, Benny boy.
It's higher.
Sorry, give me that question again.
So if the average in the UK is 77 times your whole annual income to afford the house, what's the equivalent of that specifically in RBKC? So how many times?
RBKC.
Kensington and Chelsea.
Oh,
What borough? Kensington and
sorry,
Chelsea.
not being a resident of this. I don't know what RBKC is.
Talking about too much money.
Jesus Christ, unbelievable! I was like, God Almighty, I'm an asshole.
Slipped
No,
through the net without realising.
no, just the silver spoon fell out of my mouth a while back. That's all. RBKC, I would say 15 times.
Yeah, I mean, both good guesses. It's 21.7 times.
Wow.
So you'd have to take your entire gross untaxed salary for 21 years on average to buy a house in Royal Borough, Kensington and Chelsea. I mean, so look, the point is, however, this isn't about that. Like those stats on their own don't mean anything. This is about aspiration for me. This is about how do we lead to aspirate? How do we get a generation of people, and how even as us boys do we aspire to something if all the things that we've witnessed as being the aspirational next step are so far fucking away that I caught up with a mate yesterday who did the absolute classic track. He and I went gap yearing together way back in the day. He went and studied law at Newcastle, came down and worked at a Russian merchant bank, and he was absolutely going for it, right? The money was the goal. That was it. Worked every fucking hour of every day for years. Firstly, it took him about 3 times longer than he was promised to get there. And secondly, when he was there, he was like, it's wild. I talked to my bosses and they were like, yeah, when I was your age, I just bought my first house at Chelsea cash. He was being paid 100 grand a year. Like these things are so far apart from each other. Those are luxury problems. I get that. But it's back to this fundamental message of aspiration. And I do genuinely think, and I really want your take as well, Ben, because I know particularly with the COVID thing, you very much dove into that. Let's have a go at crypto and went in hard on it. And actually, but I would say in the end, that's come good, right? You've learned loads about it. You're now like way ahead so it's not all been bad. And there's a lot of criticism leveled at it for how unregulated and risky and all those things. And we had a meeting, Jimmy, with a client last week, and the undertone of one of those guys at the meeting about crypto was like, it's basically a bit disgusting sort of thing. And I came away from that afterwards. I thought, well, on the one hand, of course, he's right. The rug pulling, the Trump coin, the Doge, all this stuff that's so aggressively manipulated. It's true. But at least it's a bloody on-ramp. And what else are they supposed to do, right? You're slagging people off for buying avocados, but you give them out. And one of the patterns that this article got to was, because there's no feeling that if I work towards it, I'll be able to buy a family home. And of course, it's not need to be in Chelsea, right? But this is a national problem. This is not just a Central London one. What they're seeing is that the younger generation are just going, sod it. I'm just going to spend it on a really nice holiday. I'm not going to accumulate or amass what would have probably been my deposit amount, because the deposit amount needs to be 500,000 or something wild to get anywhere, So, it really struck a chord. And I think it's the absolute, and I just to very lightly touch on the budget, it would be my criticism of it is that we're not doing anything to just encourage an aspiration. And curious to get your boys' takes on it too, because that's my lens rather than the entire truth.
Okay, well, let me dive in quickly, Jimmy, and then I think you can give us the adults' view of the room. So, you talked about me, buying a house. 2020 wasn't just crypto; it's actually me investing 100% full stop. So, and I think in that is something quite telling, that it's not only this wild inflation that seems to have run faster than anyone can keep up with of our generation, but I also think seems to have been a financial literacy gap as well. I do think that the holders of finance have used jargon and various other techniques to sort of hold on to financial skills a little bit more. And so it's not only, I have to take a little bit of the blame myself in that it took me that long to really take financial grip of what I was doing rather than just spending it on the three things that I wanted to spend it on. However, I definitely,
Headphones, and
yeah,
headphones.
yeah. Sex, drugs, and rock and roll is now headphones, and headphones. But what I would say is that yes, I found that even though I started off, sort of earning, earned pretty well actually in my early 20s, and I've only increased my salary from then. From that starting point, I have never been able to accelerate quick enough to match a house market. I don't. My parents don't have the money to give me a deposit for a house. So without that, I have not. As every single year I've earned a little bit more to get there. That uh, the amount needed for me to put a deposit down has just raced away from me. And I suppose, yes, absolutely, crypto is an on ramp. That is actually, it's ridiculous because of the gains and the losses that you can see in such a short amount of time. But it does seem a tangible way in which you can slightly go for it. And it's all part of this financial nihilism that you're talking about. And that it gets to the point you kind of feel like you need something like that because those sort of the pillars, the foundations of being able to have a sort of a secure financial foundation, future, are not possible to even someone like me who does earn pretty well.
Well, and just quickly, and then along with Ben, I'd love to get your thoughts too. But that was actually a point made really well, really elegantly in this article. We'll link to it. Obviously, I think it'll probably be gated for most, but if it's helpful, we will link out to it. But that idea of that most of these assets are now owned and controlled by a generation. Crypto's the only one that's increasing value that's not yet owned and controlled by them. This is our generation's version of it, and it may be rogue, but you know what? So were most of the things that we now call blue chip when they started out. That's the way it all works, right? And I thought that was quite interesting, right? If most of the property, and unfortunately, I think it was a US statistic, but the vast majority of US real estate is owned by people 60 plus. Like the vast majority is all owned by the older generation. Now, generational wealth transfer, different topic, but obviously an implication of that. But this was the opportunity, Ben, to your point of keep pace, because I think it would be fair to say, wouldn't it, that you're now in the position to buy a place, but the problem is you're now also then moved on to family life. So instead of doing the property ladder bit, you're like in a position to start on the property ladder, but you'd be like me. You'd be starting with
Yeah,
a
I could get
place.
myself a nice one-bedroom flat somewhere, but my two children would. I don't know. I don't know how they'd find that. So yeah, no, it's that acceleration. Anyway, Jimmy, go for it. Mate.
No, but there was a very interesting study done in the UK that basically said, because everyone talks about this great big housing shortage, and actually, in a lot of ways, it's not necessarily a housing shortage per se. It's the fact that you have a generation of people who own the vast majority of the family-sized houses, but they don't want to sell them because of the amount of transaction taxes that there are around a move. And the cost of moving now is thousands upon thousands of pounds. And so if you are 60 and you're rolling around a 4-bedroom house, by the time you've sold your house, paid the agent, paid the solicitors, paid the stamp duty on buying the new house, done the move, you're probably net pretty equal to where you were. So why would you bother selling the house? Which then means that all these 3-bedroom plus houses, and I certainly see it around Guildford, it's not lots of families living in them. It is elder couples whose kids have left home, but they just don't want to move. But that sort of slight nuance aside, 100%, it is. There was the nice Warren Buffett line of part of the reason why not everyone wants to invest with me is because this is a get rich slow scheme. And so no one especially wants to wait a decade plus for a good return on their money. They want to return right now. And crypto
I'm going to
has done.
challenge that. I would say I would have done that. Stocks aside, right? I think the point that really resonated for me is that I didn't even think there was a get rich slow version. Property was sold to me. If I look at my parents and my whole family, if anyone doesn't know, everyone except me is a chartered surveyor. My brother runs a property portfolio. My cousin is an estate. That everybody sees me. It was sold to me that it wasn't the get rich quick. It was a slow burn, Jimmy, but it was like you lock in and that you can work your way up and you might refurbish things or take it on. I agree with the Warren Buffett statement. I agree with your point that there will always be people who are just looking for a get rich quick scheme. This seemed deeper than that. Is this like, even if you're good, the point I suppose in the article is, even if you were well behaved and worked towards something, what was the thing? At least previously there was the get rich slow led to a place. At the moment,
Yeah.
that feels really difficult. See that nuance there, like.
Yeah, and I think there's also, crypto has the benefit of there being a number of people out in the media who say, I invested $10,000 in ETH back in 2019 and now I'm worth $5 million overnight. And so a lot of people read that and they go, well, what's the next coin that's going to do
Yeah.
that? And that will get me to where I want to go.
Yep.
I mean, that's just human nature. You aspire to
Yes.
all these things. But I think
Like somebody who bought maybe Palantir recently.
Not that recently, 5 years ago. That's get rich slow.
Oh, come on.
But it is, and so you find there is a whole generation of people who essentially, there is either the bank of mum and dad who will help you with your deposit, or who will. Someone was telling me about the cost of childcare in London is now nearly £1,400 a month, and you just think, so the second you have a child, then it's that. But the whole system has become like that.
It's less than that. When we first had Luna to go to nursery in Dalston cost me £1.5 grand a month.
Is it really? Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, but so then you're right. I mean, all these things, there's definitely a financial nihilism out there, and the recent budget didn't help because the sort of changes to the salary sacrifice scheme, and everything else just means actually this is a country where we are massively undersaving for retirement, and it will doubtless lead to a retirement crisis for those people who are sort of 40 at the minute by the time they retire. And there's no real end in sight to it.
Yeah, so what, they're going to be pushing the retirement age to 80 to sort of try and keep up, and then the whole thing will collapse?
Well, no, they won't, because people are not putting enough money into their pension pots privately, and so you have. I mean, you see it everywhere. You see these houses where it's his and hers Range Rovers and holidays in Dubai and things like that, and you just know that come the age of 60, you're going to sit there. Those people are probably going to sit there and go, maybe if I'd only gone on like 2 flash holidays a year, I'd actually have the money to, afford.
I'll be honest, Jimmy. In my heart of hearts, I kind of hope that happens to those fucks, because I'd like a his and hers Range Rover.
Yeah, interesting. I mean, there was a lovely little YouTube video. Chris, you see, can't do a Jimmy again, whatever his surname is. I'll link it below. About what does the average person in the UK have, and I'm sure he got this from another article. But he broke it down really nicely. It made the point about the average person, of course, does lease a car, and also basically terrifying amounts of money relative to their income. But the one that really hits people, I suppose. So what's the solution? Let's try and be positive, because I fundamentally want to be an optimist and a positive person. It's like, well, actually, I think engage. There is a next generation of property. Firstly, you've made a really interesting insight there, Jimmy, about the fact that the property market is partly a stalemate of people not moving. They'll die. That will that will be forced. That will help. That will change things slowly, but it will make a difference on the landscape. And what can you do in the meantime? I think that's literally the foundation of this podcast for me. Hopefully, together, we can all go out and discover the little things we could be considering to invest in and take control. Do that. The big part of this is, I don't feel in any way like remotely got there, but at least started the journey, and that makes you feel much more empowered by the thing. Ben, I know for you and I, but that really formed at a very similar time. We're like, okay, well, at least we're going on. So I would, whether it's bloody crypto or whatever, be careful. There's lots of pitfalls. Be intelligent about the whole thing, but yeah, that's the key, is recognize that it's not just buying a house that takes you there. Yeah.
As the example, sorry, let me just come in here as a more positive thing. When I did actually finally start investing and being financial literate 5 years ago, that did change my life. It was rough for the first 2 years, as I think I've discussed, but actually that has completely changed my life. In 5 years, I've completely turned around my own finance in 5 years. No, I have not got a house, but I am definitely closer to getting a house than I was 5 years ago. And I think if people are financially literate earlier than I was, actually, there are really positive things to come from this. And like
a pair of compound and security, right? You've got a massive amount of security.
Yeah, totally. Exactly.
So it's an empowering thing to do, and maybe you can't just do what the last generation did and buy a house and relax and let it go up in value for you. But that doesn't mean we don't still have a whole set of our own opportunities. We just have to make them our way and do it differently. And I think that's the answer. And then keep an eye on that landscape, because yeah, absolutely, there may well be a whole bunch of 4 or 5 bed homes desperately trying to be sold in a few
Yeah.
years' time, right? It'll be interesting to watch.
But I think also the macro environment in the UK is improving on that front, because interest rates are coming down, and they are coming down fairly quickly. And you then had one of the big news announcements this week was the relaxation of capital laws on the UK banks. And so you wonder if perhaps over the next coming months, years, they will lend more money to small businesses, which will help the economy grow and help jobs and increase living standards, and b, does that mean you might see a return to some of the more helpful mortgage packages that haven't been available in the last couple of years, that for first time buyers and for people who perhaps only have a, I don't know, 2.5-5% deposit that they can put down. Does this relaxation rules means that banks are going to be happy to extend a bit more
Yeah,
money on a
maybe.
longer term time horizon? I think it is.
Well, let's small thought, but speaking as two people here that do have a home, one thing they don't tell you about is how much they bloody cost. There's,
Yeah, I was going to
I
say, can you
as
make
somebody
money
who
on
has
property
one,
anymore? Can you
as
make
somebody who
property?
has one, I consider selling it and putting it all in the stocks
Yeah,
regularly. Because
but anyway, as
go on,
the
we're running out of time, aren't
we
we?
are
Yeah.
running out of time, but I think that's something for maybe a future thing. Is it possible to make money with property these days? Does the thing that Jimmy talked about, does that allow it to happen? And then just a quick question, Jimmy, with the interest rates coming down, banks loaning a bit more, lending a bit more money. How long does those cycles usually are? If we are coming into, say, more of that obviously these things work in cycle. How long would that be? That period of
Yeah,
lending
it's a good question. I mean, I
economic
think
growth?
it slightly depends on. This is a very different inflation environment from perhaps one we've ever seen, just because you've got everything going on with Russia, Ukraine impacting inflation, the Trump tariffs impacting inflation, and then you've got this sort of real boom into infrastructure spending, big AI projects, all having an impact on energy prices. So it's slightly difficult to say. I mean, the one thought is as soon as interest rates come down to the low threes, then all of a sudden banks are lending mortgages at very different rates to what they were able to 18 months to 2 years ago. And also now I would say, although not everyone might have liked the budget, at least we've had the budget. So we know we're not going to get another proper budget in the spring. So there is now a year of certainty whereby people know what the lay of the land is. Nothing's going to change on them. And a lot of the stuff is actually 2028 onwards, the
Mm.
changes anyway. So perhaps now people will go, all right, well,
Let's
if I'm going
lock
to
in and do
sell or
some
I'm going to
work. Let's
buy, let's
go.
just do something. Yeah.
Yeah,
So I think
agreed.
there's a bit of that. And you're talking about pensions and people saving and investing. The other topic that I thought was quite interesting was a big article this week in the Financial Times that was suggesting that UK pension funds since the summer have slowly been selling down a lot of their US equities that they've held. It didn't perhaps say too much about where they're going to put the money, but
It's coming home.
well, I mean, even this morning, it seems like every time I open the Times, there's a headline in the business section that says "AI bubble going to explode," says so
Oh
and
yeah,
so,
yeah.
and you do wonder if perhaps in the UK, particularly the UK money managers are maybe thinking, actually, is this a smart idea for me to be so exposed to all of these big tech
Maybe
names?
that's another pod, but I'd like to discuss where they are putting it, if possible, or where we think it could go. Because obviously, we're super pro UK, build it and they will come, etc. But there is a question of, like, most people have been long US tech for a while, and there is this tremor now. Is it like you ride it anyway? I'm very aware we're going too long, but the core message here is there still is reason for loads of optimism. We've got to build it for ourselves, and you can kind of ignore the noise above it. You know what? Financial nihilism, so what? I think there's plenty to go for it, but taking control is the key. Like Ben, you just said, 5 years. What a difference in 5 years? That's not 50 years. It doesn't mean you'll suddenly be like, oh, driving around in Bentleys, but it's massive in reasonably short
It
amount
can
of
be.
time. So, yeah.
All right, guys. Well, thank you very much. Sort of an impassioned soapbox episode, that one. We will be back with our usual markets updates next week and roll the what are we calling
The
it?
dice.
The dice. Well, I was calling it the risky roll, but nobody liked that.
What a surprise! Mr. Crypto comes up with a risky roll.
Mr. Crypto.
To be honest, speaking on behalf of Jack, a good friend of ours, actually somebody we should probably get on as a guest on the pod. If he heard Ben described as Mr. Crypto, I think he'd fucking pass
He'd
away.
fucking spin out, yeah. Considering that most of my crypto thing is him behind my shoulder going, this one, then this one. Don't do that.
No, you're an idiot. Press by there. Oh, right.
Yeah. Anyway, lots of love,
later,
guys.
boys.
Thank you so much for your time, and we'll see you next week for another episode of Snakes and Ladders.
Ta-ra.